All right, class, it's a really exciting time in the life of an emerging painter because we are going to start dealing with color, full color. It is my favorite component of painting. I'm just so excited. So in our previous painting, in our first painting, you were only dealing with white and black. And that was to force you to have to deal with value, discerning lightness or darkness in relative terms to create the illusion of space and depth. Now, when we deal with color, you still are responsible for dealing with value as the dominant element to define space and depth. So it doesn't matter how much hue or how much intensity or saturation or how much color you have, the dominant element is always going to be value. So to set up for using color, we got to set up your palette. I've mentioned before, laying out your palette needs to be a very systematic process. So that means that every color will always be in the same place on your palette every single time. Okay, and that means that you'll always know where that color is, but you'll also be able to see and understand each color's or each hue's or pigment's relationship to all of the other pigments based on where it's set up. So you'll be able to problem solve color just based on how the palette is set up. So within each hue, as a part of your required materials, so within the hue of yellow, I required y'all to pick one pigment that was a little bit warmer and one pigment that was a little bit cooler in temperature. And so for each hue that you have, so we've got, white is not a hue, but yellow. These are kind of the brown colors, the burnt sienna, raw sienna, burnt umber, raw umber. You just were required to choose one of these. I had two, and so I put them both down. But the brown or the earth tone colors or ochres or siennas or umbers, those we will consider in the family of orange. They're very neutral oranges, but they're very orange nonetheless. And then our reds here with our cadmium red light and our alizarin crimson. I'm arranging them based on temperature as well. Our blues, okay, and our greens. We don't have any purples. So what you'll probably notice is that we're arranging these on the palette as if they're going around the color wheel, right? So starting with white, because we always put that's the one extreme of value, and we would put black over on this other side to the right of the viridian green is where black would go. Because those are our two most extreme values that we can use. So those always will stay on polar opposite ends of the palette. But then we start with our lightest hue, which would be yellow. Makes sense. It's closest to white. Okay. So we go through yellow, and just as if we're going around the color wheel, we go yellow through the oranges to the reds. Okay. Through the violets, if we had a violet. If anybody bought dioxazine purple as an option, you could put that right here between the reds and the blues. And then we have green, right? And we would put black because it's one of the darkest ones. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how to use these colors to mix any number of other colors. Now, obviously, it's very easy to mix a bright color, because these are already very bright or intense colors right out of the tube. When a color is its most saturated or pure right out of the tube, then it is its most intense as well. All right, there's only one exception that maybe we'll talk about another time. There's one pigment that kind of defies this pattern. So it would be easy, if we needed a bright color, we would pick a pigment that was really close to that bright color. And we might change it a little bit by adding maybe a little bit of white or a little bit of an adjacent color to cool it or warm it off, but it would be pretty easy. The harder things to do are to look at the neutral colors, because we don't usually find neutral colors out of the tube. So we're going to work on mixing chromatic neutrals or chromatic grays, okay, in this project. That'll be where I'll pick up in the next video. I would suggest you take a screenshot of this layout, and should you want to, actually, maybe take a screenshot of this. So the arrangement of these colors on the palette, you begin with white, which is the lightest. You follow the color wheel sequence through all of the hues. Each hue arrange by temperature. And I've given you kind of a model of how I do that. This is warmer, that's cooler. Within the oranges, sienna is warmer, umber is cooler. Cad red light and alizarin crimson. Cad red light is warmer. It looks like it has like more of yellows in it. Okay, it's almost like orangish. Alizarin crimson is a cooler red. It looks like it has almost a little bit of blue in it. It's a little bit closer to violet or purple. The blues, who the heck knows? I have trouble with the hues. Okay, if you feel like your cerulean blue is definitely warmer than your ultramarine blue, you can flip-flop these if you want to. As long as you set it up the same way each time, that's fine. And then sap green and viridian green are pretty obvious. Sap green is kind of like a, look at that, like a grass green, a spring green. Viridian green is like winter green. All right.